Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the federal government is expanding a loan program for small businesses that are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic and is working on a new support for companies having trouble paying rent. The loan program will be open to businesses that had payrolls last year between $20,000 and $1.5 million. The Canada Emergency Business Account previously offered up to $40,000 in loans to businesses with payrolls between $50,000 and $1 million. As of this morning, there were 28,893 confirmed and presumptive cases of COVID-19 across the country. That includes 1,048 deaths. Well, more help is expected for small businesses today in the form of changes to the eligibility rules for the Canada Emergency Business Account program. Some small and medium-sized businesses have complained that they're not eligible for the interest-free loans. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be on a conference call with the rest of G7 leaders, and he'll be talking with premiers and territorial leaders about the importance of boosting wages for essential workers, especially those in long-term care homes. Well, with the ban on non-essential travel set to expire next week, Ottawa and Washington appear to have differing views on when the border should reopen. President Donald Trump is signaling that he's prepared to support easing travel restrictions sooner rather than later. However, the U.S. still has the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the world, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made it clear that efforts to control the spread of the virus will likely continue for several more weeks. Meanwhile, the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians warns that Canada is facing a shortage of certain sedatives and painkillers that are needed for patients on ventilators, and this could become critical in weeks. The association has written to its members urging them to try and avoid using the limited supply of medications in favor of using alternatives. However, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says there is no concern at this point about a shortage of drugs crucial for COVID-19 patients. A small Halifax area sign company has retooled itself to produce thousands of protective face shields to guard against COVID-19. Dartmouth-based United Sign, which employs 18 people, says it will make up to 60,000 shields in the coming weeks and will ship an order of 10,000 to the New Brunswick government this week. The Supreme Court of Canada will rule today on whether it will hear an appeal from a young man who killed 4 people and injured 7 others in La Loche, Saskatchewan in 2006. The shooter was just about to turn 18 at the time, but was sentenced as an adult with no chance of parole for 10 years. He is fighting to be sentenced as a youth. Now, unless it can secure immediate funding of at least $1 million a month, the Vancouver Aquarium could close for good by July. The aquarium is forecasting monthly losses in the range of $3.3 million due to the COVID-19 pandemic and says the situation is a disaster. It has applied for $9.5 million in emergency funding from Ottawa and has been in talks with federal and provincial officials. The aquarium is home to 70,000 animals. Well, government relief checks have begun arriving in American bank accounts as the economic damage to the U.S. from the coronavirus piles up. Declining sales at reopened stores in Europe and China are making it clear that businesses won't necessarily bounce back when the crisis ends. With many factories shut down, American industrial output fell in March, registering its biggest decline since the end of the Second World War. Retail sales fell by an unprecedented 8.7%, with April expected to be far worse. Well, automakers around the world are looking ahead to when they can gradually resume production that has ground to a halt to protect workers from the virus. Volkswagen says it will resume production at passenger car plants in Europe next week, starting at plants in Germany and Slovakia. The company says other plants in Germany and in the U.S., Portugal, Spain, and Russia will resume production in the week starting April 27th. Austria's health minister says nursing homes will be a central focus of COVID-19 testing. The country has announced plans to test all residents and staff in nursing homes to help curb the spread of infections among the most vulnerable. Care facilities around the world have been hit hard by the virus, with elderly and disabled patients dying in disproportionately high numbers compared with the rest of the population. Well, in the UK, the British government is set to extend a nationwide lockdown for several more weeks as health officials say the COVID-19 outbreak in the country is peaking. Authorities are expecting to announce an extension of restrictions on movement and business activity. Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty said the UK is probably reaching the peak overall, but they're not yet at a point where they can say confidently and safely that the worst is behind them. The world's wealthiest countries have agreed to suspend billions of dollars in debt payments for the world's poorest countries as nations race to spend money on healthcare and workers impacted by the pandemic. The group of 20 nations agreed unanimously yesterday on the suspension of debt payments at a virtual summit of finance ministers that was presided over by Saudi Arabia. The Saudi finance minister said after the meeting, quote, "All bilateral official creditors will participate in this initiative, which is an important milestone for the G20. Well, Chinese leaders have reopened factories and shops in an effort to revive their economy, but consumers have been slow to return to shopping malls and auto dealerships. Authorities are trying to encourage spending by handing out shopping vouchers, but many people are uneasy about a possible resurgence of the coronavirus or losing their jobs. The delay is a blow to automakers and other global companies that hope China will power a worldwide recovery. Israel's president has asked the Knesset to choose a new prime minister, giving the parliament 3 weeks to agree upon a leader or force the country into an unprecedented fourth consecutive election in just over a year. President Rivlin made the move on Thursday after his prime minister-designate, Benny Gantz, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu failed to reach a power-sharing deal. Although the deadline passed, both leaders said that they would continue their negotiation toward an emergency unity government meant to steer the country through the coronavirus crisis. Bangladesh's Coast Guard has rescued 396 starving Rohingya refugees who had been drifting at sea for weeks after failing to reach Malaysia. Coast Guard officials say the refugees, including many women and children, were attempting to land on Bangladesh's coast. Officials gave varying accounts of whether they had been among the hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims who are living in refugee camps in Bangladesh. Well, starting tomorrow, you can order up a new and vastly cheaper iPhone. The second-generation iPhone SE will sell for as little as $399, a 40% markdown from the most affordable iPhone 11 unveiled last year. Higher-end versions of the iPhone 11 sell for more than $1,000. Online orders for the iPhone SE will begin tomorrow, and the first deliveries are expected for April 24th. A pilot project in Vancouver shows that seniors have a lot to offer during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 411 Senior Center Society has launched a Powered by Age podcast that has seniors learning how to record podcasts on health and cultural topics so that they can stay connected through stories. 72-year-old Sylvie Anderson barely knew what a podcast was, but has learned to use a voice recorder on her phone to record stories and is joining Zoom meetings to plan podcast segments. Well, that sounds like a great way to stay together while being apart. Remember to stay safe, everyone. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.